Beginning January 1st, 2020, the recreational use of cannabis will be legal in the state of Illinois.
Available to stream now, my mini-doc dives into the history of Illinois legalization, starting with
January 1st, what should we expect? The biggest thing that we need people to understand is that January 1, in terms of the criminal justice system here in this state, is the end of prohibition.
See how Illinois missed its chance at real cannabis reform with key failures, including the fact that
the program includes regulation on possession limits.
So people can still be arrested for a possession.
And I want to highlight that in its first year of legalized recreational marijuana in the state of Illinois, they arrested 3 times as many black people for possession than any other race.
We've run into so much cannabis, we've run out of places to put it.
I have represented people and taken their cases through the court system who got charged with more serious crimes only because the police said that they smelled cannabis. And not because the police said you have illegal cannabis, or not because you have too much cannabis, or not because you're high on cannabis, but because I can smell it and that's it.
Attorney goes, he understands that he can't be smoking and his cannabis flower shouldn't be open. And I was like, I'd like to say for the record that I was not smoking and my flower was not open.
So that's where we're at right now in Illinois, and I hope it changes.
Start watching now at colememo.com/minidoc. Let's get it sparked up. Jason Beck, thank you so much for sitting down with me. I'll let you inhale that smoke, and when you're done, can you go ahead and introduce yourself to my audience? Tell us about who you are and what you do.
Sure. I'm Jason Beck. I'm the longest continuous retail operator of cannabis in the United States. Been around for a pretty long time. I'm now currently doing High at 9 News, which is America's #1 daily cannabis news show. We cover 6 stories Monday through Friday, 6 different cannabis stories, all recent, current, with also in-depth opinion and a lot of controversy sometimes from other correspondents that have differing viewpoints on different issues. So we like to have that good debate around different issues and whatnot, and help promote a healthy dialogue throughout the country.
Hell yeah, I love it. And if people couldn't tell, it's live every day. At what time?
Yes, we are live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast.
Hell yeah. Hell
Yes.
yeah. So tune in, folks. You'll see me in the chat. I am a frequent listener/viewer, and it's a great way to, like you say, stay up to date, but also get a good variety of opinions. I like the rotating panelists that you have on. In fact, I'm going to play a clip that I've got queued up right now. That I've got queued up already later. That's just a really poignant point that one of your panelists brought up. But yeah, you said, longest continuous cannabis retail operator. I'm curious how long you've been in the cannabis, my friend.
So I've operated and owned a storefront ever since like 2000, 2001.
Wow. Yeah.
Started in San Francisco in cannabis's infancy, and then was invited to West Hollywood in 2004 from a recommendation from the Board of Supervisors in San Francisco to the city of West Hollywood, and have been down in West Hollywood ever since. And it's been one hell of a ride, I can tell you that.
Yeah, you've gone all the way through Cannabis 1.0 right into Cannabis 2.0, right? With the Cole memo and stuff.
And all the way through 4.20.
Yeah.
At the same time, you mentioned the Cole memo. A lot of people put way too much emphasis on the Cole memo, in my opinion, because the Cole memo is simply a memorandum as a directive. It actually has no teeth or enforcement whatsoever. One thing that I worked on when I worked on federal policy, when I was a finance chairman and point person on cannabis policy and messaging for Congressman Rohrabacher, was the Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment, which is the federal appropriations bill that prohibits the DOJ and DEA from extrapolating federal funds to go after state licensed cannabis businesses. Right. And that's the sole piece of federal legislation that's been a budget rider and passed unanimously every year. That is the reason for the growth of the industry that we all witness today.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah, and like you say, I I don't the reason I actually I'm like sort of in love with the name, but also
Mhm.
like hate the name is because of what
How
it
can you hate
seems.
your own name?
What's that?
How can you hate your own name, Cole?
Right. Well, obviously I
Right.
love that part of it, but like you say, the legacy that it brought, not only was it not perfect, and I wanted to get into that, but it really I have a problem with the fact that it does seem to have birthed cannabis generation 2.0, which is like highly regulated, limited, licensed. In
Mhm.
other words, like treating cannabis like a scheduled substance as opposed to what you started in California, which is like a caregiver slash home grower market, or at
Mhm.
least close to it. And I really like the roots of the movement and how that was. I'm not saying that cannabis can't be highly regulated and such, but definitely not limited licensing. Like that just seems anti-American, you know?
Mhm. Mhm. Well, I
So
mean, there's a lot of high-powered lobbyists out there that would be paying a lot of dollars to make sure that those frameworks are set up within these states. And in all honesty, that's how we have gotten through a lot of more conservative states, if you would be, by having those types of limited licensure marketplaces. Because one thing that I have learned throughout government is that government does not like monopolies, but government loves oligopolies.
right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that oligopoly, like you say, it's been digestible in southern states. Like I'll just name a random one and feel free to name a better one, or if you disagree with this example, let me know. But like Arkansas, I feel like Arkansas is a good example of what you're
Okay.
talking about, where it's like a limited market and you
I think
wouldn't.
the difference is if I remember correctly, Arkansas people are partnered. So there's some people that are partnered with the government within Arkansas.
Oh,
There's some
interesting.
kind of I would say the best example in out of all 50 states for this type of marketplace, I would say would be Florida.
Yeah, yep. Well said.
No,
Yeah.
with Florida, you have very limited licensure. You got, what is it? Let's just say 16, whatever it is, the number licensures. And then those people are allowed to be fully vertically integrated and allowed to open up as many retails per cap base based off the number of patients registered with the state of Florida. And so, I mean, you have stores with hundreds of locations throughout the state, and I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. But I think also too, people do need to know is that before people can open up those local stores, they do have to get a local approval from the local jurisdiction as far as like some type of land use for that store to inhabit within their confines of their city.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, we jumped right in and I figured we would, but I want to take like a little bit of a step back because yeah, one of the things I wanted to discuss with you, I listened, can't remember if it had to have been a show that I listened to you because that's about the regular capacity that I listened to you in. I was thinking it might have been a Twitter space or something for a second, but I think it was your show. And you talked about how like the differences in administration, and I thought that was an interesting perspective that I had never heard before. And what I mean to be more specific was the differences in enforcement. You like named off through the years. You were like, in the Bush administration, I was rated this amount of times. In the Obama
Mhm.
administration, I was rated this amount of time. Can you
Under
recap?
Yeah, no, no, of course. Under Bush, I was rated twice, or excuse me, once. Under Obama, I was rated twice. I was never rated under Trump, and there were raids within the city and county of San Francisco under Clinton. And so I think that that's an important distinction to make, is that there have been raids throughout all of those presidential tenors. Um,
And
so.
you meant Clinton, like as in like back in 1996 when California
Yep.
first started and such. Yeah.
Yeah. We all thought Clinton was going to be great for us and everything else like that. But he came in with his DOJ, and he, in essence, closed down a dispensary that was operated by a man by the name of Ken Hayes and 6th Street. And basically, what ended up happening from that is that's what really sparked the start of the growth within San Francisco. Was when that shop closed down, because a bunch of the managers and operators from that store all went and opened up their own stores once that place was raided and closed down by the federal government.
Yeah. And when you got raided, like in the Obama administration, was that before or after the Cole memo?
Mm, good question, bro. I don't remember. You'd have to pull up the date of when the Cole memo was released,
Yeah.
but I can tell you that I was raided once in 2010 and once in 2013, and that was both under his tenure.
Yeah, I don't think the Cole memo, or at least the one that we are actually referring to, because I actually learned there's multiple versions of the Cole memo. The version one actually uh did very, I know you made the point that it did nothing, but
Mhm.
there were three versions, and some people argue the third version was a bit better, but it also, again, to your point, didn't stop the raids,
It
right?
only,
So
yeah, it just directed, and to say don't enforce, but there was no teeth behind whether or not, and then they created these kind of like artificial guidelines to kind of go over, like, as long as you weren't violating these 8 things, then you didn't have then they didn't feel as though that you should be subject to X, Y, or Z. But
yeah.
I mean, like, those things still happened.
hmm what is that conversation like? To, obviously, it's probably got to be shocking right off the bat to have your dispensary raided, but like, you know,
Oh, bro,
how does that
it's
go?
I mean, I can put it to you the best. I think this is probably the best way people could possibly understand it, possibly nowadays, is if you can, if you're playing your favorite video game and you've mastered everything and you got all the lives and all the weapons and all the jewels and all the coins and all the everythings, all the ammunition, everything that you could possibly need. And before memory cards, your little brother or sister walked over to the console and hits reset. And that's basically what it's like on your life.
I love the analogy because yeah, that your heart like drops out of your chest when that happens.
You're
Yeah.
you're back at level one at zero, nothing, and you know what I'm saying? Like, that's it.
hmm Yeah. So is there any like conversation they have with you where they like kind of tell you why like
What do you mean? They don't have to have a reason. It's a Schedule One drug. They don't have to have a reason.
yeah, I didn't know. Like, yeah, like do they are they just like they just come in, take your shit, close the door, and they're just like fuck you, or like how does
Uh,
it go, you know?
so okay, so basically they come in, and they'll raid the place. So generally, when they get a warrant, that
Yeah.
warrant is active for, you know what I mean, anywhere from like 10 days, sometimes a week, to 2 weeks, right? That when they get a warrant from a judge, then that gives them the ability to go and raid that space anytime within the timelines of that warrant.
Mm.
So whenever they go and raid is sometime within that time period, and then you cannot really enter the building, um or to remove anything or do anything until after that warrant is expired, because that warrant is still live, so they could come back and do whatever. So it's not like you can go and start to bring product back in there, or, you know what I mean? You can go and do maintenance, cleanup, construction, anything that would be considered federally legal, you know what I
hmm
mean? But nonetheless, they're still watching the place. They're still there, at least for the duration of that warrant, as a minimum,
Wow.
from my experience.
Wow. That's crazy. Well, once again, I just wanted to say it before we got too far into the episode, folks. Sitting down with Jason Beck from High at Nine. It's highat9news.com. We'll have all the links in the podcast description, just like usual. I wanted to make sure to say that before we got too far into the show. So that's interesting. One thing that I felt like you didn't mention, and I'm curious, I felt like you had mentioned before, and I just can't recall what you had said.
Mhm.
Um, you said Bush, Obama, Trump. Did anything have? I know
Trump,
Biden's not over yet, but
there's no
no
raids
Trump.
under Trump,
Right.
no raids under Trump, no,
Right.
and which is really ironic, because everyone was, oh, Jeff Sessions, da 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 da. And in all honesty too, there has to be some accountability from the industry, because what really got it on Jeff Sessions' radar at that time was when he was still a senator, close to when the time he was trying to get confirmed, or right before. There was a bunch of activists from Philadelphia, DC, and whatnot, that thought it would be like cool to go and like dress up like clowns and go and try to have a conversation with the then senator. And they went and did all this, and they all were dressed up in their crazy outfits, looking like clowns. And then they decided to smoke a joint in his office.
Yeah.
Now, and it's like, these people, are it was just, I was just like, I was so furious because all of a sudden that made it a bigger issue for then Senator Sessions once he became Attorney General. And there was a lot of work that had to go in behind the scenes during that time, and whatnot to ensure the safety for Rohrabacher Farr, which was the federal appropriations bill at that time. But nonetheless, we were able to be successful in that. But there was a lot of work that had to be done that was just extra work because
Right.
of actions.
That's crazy. So you're saying that, and I don't know, I just feel like I've maybe never heard that bit of the story before. You know, people know, as you just said earlier, people will be critical of Jeff Sessions, and they'll even put it on the Trump administration that he revoked the Cole memo, right? And they'll be
Yeah,
critical of that.
memo doesn't do anything, so it doesn't.
Right. I understand your point, but
Yeah.
the thing you said that I found interesting was you're saying that he was also like considering maybe targeting the Rohrabacher Farr amendment, and
Well, Sessions was making moves to try to get that removed from the budget. He was lobbying for that and whatnot, and so we had to put a stronger lobbying up effort in regards to maintain that status that no one sees unless you know what's going on behind the scenes, kind of thing.
right, right. That's very interesting stuff. I was just trying to find the video that everybody knows with Jeff Sessions. Good people don't smoke marijuana.
Yeah, I mean, that's the generation that he grew up in, and that's kind of just his position on it, and it is what it is. I mean, shortly after his appointment to that office, he was removed, and then we ended up having William Barr, and we had no federal raids under either attorney generals. So, and not to mention, Trump signed the Farm Bill, which, in my opinion, default legalized cannabis. Period. You know what I mean, with THCA and everything else, and how everything else is being sold throughout the area.
Yeah,
And states. I mean, you live in Illinois, you go into gas stations and you see what's going on.
yeah, and I don't think it's really a problem, to be honest. Like some
You know,
people, I know you didn't mean it that way, or I'm assuming you didn't mean it that way, but sometimes people will be like, oh, this fucking gas station weed. It's like, yeah, they sell a lot of crazy shit at the gas station. Like, what are you talking about?
that's true. That is true. They do sell a lot of crazy things at the gas station and have the time
Like
lapse.
crazy boner pills that,
People buy it, yeah, because and obviously it wouldn't be there unless it was selling.
right. And my thing is like, if to the people that are like, oh, this gas station stuff, it's like, don't smoke it if you think that about it. I don't smoke. Like, there's a gas station down the road that smells like Delta 10 stuff, and it's like, I don't smoke it. But if they had a jar of like some THCA flower that I could like inspect and smell, like I would consider buying that.
Like real deli style, right?
Yeah, yeah. Like, get out of here. I would love that if I could buy that at the gas station, you know?
THCA flower bar coming to your nearest Petro. Fuel up. Get your gas and get your other gas.
Yeah. So I figure we'll probably bounce all over anyways, but just to bounce in the direction you took us, like I tend to agree with you, and I can't help but wonder. I just feel like it would be strategically genius if, if Trump was really looking for motivation from voters, if he basically stole the cannabis issue from the Now Harris campaign, basically saying like, okay, you guys are talking about rescheduling cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
I descheduled cannabis. Why don't we take it the rest of the way? Like and I'm just telling you, dude, like that would be a brilliant move. He could own the issue and
I agree.
literally say, I went, like you said, he could say, I went further than you already,
Exactly. Exactly. Well, I mean, ultimately, hopefully, that's probably what may have to happen if we go into Schedule 3, because I don't believe Schedule 3 to be good for the industry. It'll be good for the MSOs that may possibly be looking for a big buyout by a big farmer or whatnot. But as far as for the small craft business, that has really been the backbone of this industry, I see it as like an elimination.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's mainly due to the fact of how Schedule 3 drugs have to be sold, as far as they have to be sold by a pharmacist, has to be X, Y, and Z, and all of these different things. And with the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, every single product on a cannabis shelf is either a food, drug, or cosmetic. So everything would fall under that. And I just don't think that removing 280E is worth having this whole new agency have governance over us when we have the one agency that really would have governance over us as the DEA in a current Schedule 1 format, basically tabled with the pending legislation to where like we can operate as a business. But and at the same time, I have friends that say that they've gone to talk to the Bidens in regards to these different things, and have assured everything that the government has no intention of trying to hamper any of the businesses that are operating and whatnot under a Schedule 3 format. But at the same time, like it clearly states how Schedule 3 drugs have to be sold, and
Right.
that is not how any of these dispensaries are operating. Not to mention that there's only probably a couple of the MSOs that are going to be able to put maybe 3 to 5 SKUs through a whole FDA SKU making process for some of their products. And so it's just, I feel like it's just going to make the trap live on. And and there's a lot of people that are like hopeful that like, oh, they're going to put these provisions in place and da 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 da, but like I don't see how they do that legislatively.
Provisions in place for what? Like to
Like workarounds to
Oh, right,
remove
right.
enforcement protocols on how Schedule 3 drugs are sold and whatnot,
Mhm.
have to be produced and whatnot. So then that way it can kind of confine within the industry of how the industry is built out and laid out, to promote a more harmonious economic situation. But I don't see how they do that. But there's some
Right.
people that say this and that, and I just know that if it's written in there, then it can happen, and it's a reality. So, just because it doesn't happen today doesn't mean it can't happen tomorrow.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I don't mean to take a step back, but it's just interesting, like what we started with and now what we're talking about now. Like this feels like if it were to be Schedule 3 and if it were to be the way that you described it, I'm not talking about the provisions. I'm talking about like the way we understand Schedule 3 to be. I feel like
Just how Schedule 3 drugs have to be sold.
right, right.
We're just taking it on face basis on what the rules are
Yep.
currently, how they're in place, and how they're written, and everything like that currently.
Right, like Marinol, for example, or any other Schedule 3 drug that,
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So, and to your point, maybe if we should just like spell it out before we move on, like you folks, you can't just go to Walgreens and say, "Hi, I'd like Marinol," which by the way is an FDA approved Schedule 3 cannabis drug. You can't just, and I'm contrasting that with your experience at a dispensary where you can just go and be like, "I want an ounce of this."
Yeah.
And that's the difference, is that you need a prescription for, right? Is that what you're trying to make the
I
highlight?
mean, in essence, Schedule 3 drugs are only sold by prescription. I don't know of any
Right,
over-the-counter Schedule 3 drug
right.
that I'm aware of. Maybe someone in your chat knows of one, but I mean, I'm not aware of one. But I'm not a pharmaceutical drug expert either, so I don't want to act like I am either.
Right. Yeah, I worry that Schedule 3 is almost like Cannabis Gen 3.0. And again, we defined Cannabis Gen 2.0 as like highly regulated, limited license, compliance focused. I think I worry, and we worry, that Gen 3 becomes this like pharmaceutically regulated, nothing like we've ever seen before. And it's like, again, to take us a step back, and even I'm curious what you thought about this. Like I saw that Dennis Perone, before he died, got some like hate because he opposed the 2016 adult use initiative in California, but he explained that tax and regulate, like he basically said, and I'm loosely quoting, and I can try to find the direct quote, but he said something to the effect of like, oh, go ahead. Do you remember?
No, I was gonna say, I know the quote. I know exactly what you're, but please, yeah, if you can find the direct quote, I'm sure your audience would love to hear the direct quote.
Yeah.
But I know exactly what you're referring to, and I was around for a lot of those different type of times back then, and a lot of the old school industry, founders and legacy advocates and we're all against we're all against Proposition 64. They were all against it because they felt that it was, you know, way too restrictive and all of this, and you know, for a lot of reasons, and I think a lot of those reasons were valid. I, on the other hand, was on the side of 64 because there was a state bill that had passed the California legislature known as McCursa.
Mm.
Okay. And McCursa was scheduled to go into effect. Okay. It had been voted on the legislature and was going to go into effect. And I think a lot of the activists don't understand how the regulatory process affects business and commerce and how they get everything and whatnot. But basically, McCursa was basically a lot of the same restrictions that are in Prop 64 were in McCursa. Very, very similar in that sense. The problem was that it regulated medical in that similar way. Okay.
Mm.
And one of those other regulations was it also regulated doctors and said that doctors can only write 100 recommendations per year. So, and I was like, there's not enough doctors at this time to even suffice for the amount, you know, because there was doctors that were doing paper mills that were just seeing, you know, 300 patients a day, signing them off, you know what I'm saying, to be patients back then. And so the patient base was extremely, extremely large at that time, especially in a city like West Hollywood, Los Angeles area. San Francisco is another big area, and, you know, and even in the Central Valley. You know, San Diego still had a lot of enforcement on things back there, so it really wasn't as open as what it is today. And so it's been very, very interesting
Yeah.
to watch in that sense.
Yeah, and I got the quote, by the way. So Dennis Perone, when he asked why, he said why he opposed it. If Prop 64 was aiding Prop 215, I'd be all for it, but it's not. It seems to be rewriting what we've already accomplished. We don't need more rewriting of laws. We have enough cannabis laws.
I mean, I agree with him on that, and like I said, my reason for supporting it is because we were going to get McCursa otherwise, and I felt that McCursa was far more restrictive,
damaging, yeah.
Yeah, far more damaging than what Prop 64 was. And so to me, I was an advocate for Prop 64. I got a lot of hate. I even got like a couple of Instagram accounts deleted from all the hate and whatnot from during that time. But you know, whatever, you know, I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. The one interesting documentary I've seen that kind of covers some of Prop 64 and like its impact and such is Murder Mountain, which it has, you know, it covers a kind of a different story, but along the way it covers this, and it's very interesting. Very interesting stuff.
I know Murder Mountain was a great great documentary. And you know, that's where bro, you're out there in the woods, bro. You know what I mean? If tree falls and no one's around, does a tree really fall? You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Yeah. So, anyways, like I don't know. I just as we progress, I don't mean to be like things can't change. I don't mean to sound like an old man or anything, but I do hate it. It just seems like, you know, one of my complaints, especially with the way that Illinois has done what we've done, is that, you know, my only complaint was that I had to look over my shoulder when I would go to the weed man, right? And you know, just for lack of better words. And by that I mean looking over my shoulder for like law enforcement, making sure like, you know, I'm not gonna get fucking arrested. Like that was my only complaint. It's nice to have dispensaries. Don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining. I love dispensaries. They're awesome. It's cool to go to a place with like a big selection. I'm just saying that, you know, when you hear somebody like our governor and the way that the legislature talked about it, they looked at it as a budget issue instead of like a justice issue. And it just, I mean, look, I don't mean to sound ignorant either. Everybody told me, Cole, they're not going to legalize it until they figure out how to just milk people for money off of it. You know what I mean? But
well, I mean, if you look, I mean, but you know, as my co-host Rico would say, follow the money. And if you look at the Illinois, how that marketplace was set up, and you look at who was the ultimate recipients of the licensees, out there. I mean, it wasn't anybody, you know, it wasn't anybody that didn't come from money,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
And then after that, then they were like, oh, now we got to do the social equity component, and and the social equity component, I mean, these people don't have money and they're not getting government grants to start their businesses or anything else like that. They're making them partner up with different predatory investors that are taking advantage of a lot of these situations and whatnot.
Mhm.
And it's supposed something that is designed to create some type of economic stability for generational wealth. I think ended up in most markets became a ultimate tax burden.
Right. Yeah. Well, and not only, like you said, were the original licensees all wealthy people, the initial set of the initial licensing round, which was marred in controversy because of an accounting firm that had a lot of issues scoring our applications. They got a no bid contract from the state of Illinois for $7 million. They renewed it for $14 million. They outsourced the work to bid workers for $700,000. So they walked away with like millions of dollars still. And on top of all that, like I said, in the first round of licensees, there was only 21 people, and they were all connected to the original set of licensees. And some of them connected to really other really wealthy people, like restaurateur Phil Stefani, who's hosted like many presidents in Chicago at his restaurants. And so, like you say, yeah, it's just funny how it always ends up working. And I will just say, folks, stay tuned. To your point about what Rico said, we did follow the money, and you can either check out our work at colememo.com/history, folks that are listening, or stay tuned for my upcoming mini documentary where I show you all the money that's come in and who it went to.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's interesting stuff, and it makes sense why everything is the way that it is when you look at it
Yeah.
that way.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I mean, even one of the operators from your state, the Wrigley's, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, and the Wrigley's, you know what else they own? Mars.
right.
You know what Mars owns?
Like a lot of shit. Let me pull up the
Skittles.
map. Yeah.
Have you gone in to one of their dispensaries out there, Cole, and asked them for some Skittles? You
No.
should.
Well, there was the whole thing. You remember they asked people to stop calling it Skittles. So that's what birthed Skittles with the Z.
Oh, bro, I was here. I was had a front row seat for all of that over the years.
Yeah.
I'm, I find it ironic that after all that, the way how everything's pans out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's interesting, I one of the main catalysts for me wanting to like I'd been wanting to reach out to you anyways. I'd been really busy with this mini doc, so it was nice that we were both able to carve out some time. But one of the things that really kicked me back into gear doing this was, and this is the first podcast I think I've recorded since this happened, was the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, dude. Like our country reached a whole new level of heat, and we're still a few months away from the election.
Mhm.
How are you feeling about, and also, you know, Biden's no longer in the race. How are you feeling about this upcoming election?
Man, I feel it's going to be interesting to watch. What I've really been monitoring is different changes that are happening within the states, because the states run each state's election, right?
Mhm.
And there has been some things happening with these voter registrars in these different states, where just like masses amounts of people are being added onto these different rosters, and there's no social security number attached with them.
Hmm.
And so or it doesn't match into like the government system, and so like some of these states are kicking them out, others aren't. And so I'm watching more of that, because that's something that I often wonder, because you can't tell me that the videos when you see just random people throwing in hundreds of ballots in a mailbox, you can't tell me that that's legal. Like they're not like the caretaker for everyone in their building and dropping everyone's ballot off. I'm not buying that for a minute. So, but um, so, but it's a tragic thing that happened to
You don't
President
gather
Trump.
all your neighbors' ballots and
No,
take them.
no, bro. I'm not enough time in the day for all of that. You know, man, what a life it would be if you
I
had
was
time.
raised to go around and collect all of my neighbors' ballots and bring them in.
But you're from Chicago, and that's the foundation of politics, which is vote early and vote often, because Mayor Daley had the cemetery vote. And you know what the cemetery vote was, right?
No.
The
I mean,
cemetery
I think
vote
I
was
loosely know what it is. Yeah.
when Mayor Daley was the mayor of Chicago. He basically, if you had a family member and you didn't have the money to have them buried, he would pay for your funeral and for their burial, and in exchange, he would own your voting rights for 10 years. And that was known as the cemetery vote.
Okay. Interesting. Well, I have to Google that one. I've never heard of that
Yeah.
cemetery vote. I've always heard of the dead people voting or people saying that,
Oh,
cemetery
well,
vote.
that's yeah. Oh, well, that's because there's not like federal database of voters, which should be to like kick people off when they pass or whatnot. In the states, I don't think a lot of times have the technology or whatnot, or don't clean their voter registrar, or even like with a census or anything else like that. So there's a lot of information gathering, but not a lot of like cross information sharing to, you know what I mean, clean up the data. So you got a bunch of dirty data and old data in a lot of different places.
Yeah. Interesting. But yeah, how you feeling about Kamala, or is that I feel like I messed it up. It's Kamala, not Kamala, or some people. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's Kamala.
I can't believe that they're trying to spin the narrative that if you don't say it the right way, that's racist. I think that's crazy, but nonetheless,
I would like to know, honestly.
yeah,
I just don't know much about her.
it's Kamala,
Okay, cool.
and then they say Kamala is how you're not supposed to say it.
Okay,
But
great. I'm glad
yeah, that's that's to my understanding. And who knows? I could have it totally mixed up too, but I don't. You know, Kamala. I've known Kamala for a long time. She was a district attorney in San Francisco when I was in San Francisco, and I served on her medical cannabis task force. And there were still some arrests when she was there, some prosecutions for cannabis and whatnot. When she was there. And I think, there is some people that point to her record that there weren't many during that time. And, I'm here to say that there weren't, but there still were. And at the same time, the bigger numbers that everyone talks about and references is when she was the attorney general. I think people conflate the two numbers or whatnot, but those numbers are from when she was the attorney general of the state of California overall.
So was she in that position that you're talking about after being an attorney general? I'm sorry, I don't know
No, she started off first as the district attorney in San Francisco.
and that's when you
And that's when I worked with her, and then from there she went to become the attorney general for the state.
so
of
the
California.
arrests kicked up. That's kind of what I was trying to.
Yeah, well, she had a larger pool of enforcement, and San Francisco is its own city and county, and so we had a task force that would meet with them, and if they're Sharon Wu was her head of narcotics department during that time, and so we had a relationship with her, and so when there were different people that we knew that were within the community, we would make sure to acknowledge that and let them know that, hey, these are our providers, da 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 da. But there still were some arrests during that time. Not many, but there still were some.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is, it doesn't really, to me, it sounds worse that the arrests got larger in number as she got more resources, because it's almost like,
she had a larger pool to fish in.
right.
And if there's nothing happen, if no one knows anyone that's over here, what's going on over there, and no one,
Mhm.
it doesn't amplify. You know, you have to remember too, back then, that the speed of communication, you know, we're going from pagers to cell phones. And just in the beginning of that, you know what I mean? There was no smartphones, you know what I mean? You know, there's like before BlackBerry even. And so I think that's one thing that people don't really factor into a lot of how things happened back in the day is the speed at which information traveled during that time period, because everyone is just used to information, boom, immediately, in this day and age with everything being at the tip of your fingertips in your phone. But the world wasn't not like that a long time ago. It was very, very different.
Right. Well, you know, it's crazy is to your point. I almost was like, is bringing up the Trump assassination like too old news? You know, it's been 2 weeks, right?
No. I mean,
But it's still crazy news. So that's why I thought like, yeah, we
you
should
see
talk
the
about it
hearing.
because
Did you see the hearing with the director of the FBI? Because she resigned the day after.
I only saw bits and pieces on Tim Dillon.
Okay. All right. All right. All
He
right.
was talking about the sloped roof and
Yeah.
yeah, it was really funny.
Yeah. And you know what's funny? It was what really trips me out the most is there's a social media battle going on between everyone on Instagram, and Meta is saying that this guy Crooks is the shooter. And meanwhile, on Twitter, everyone else is saying that it's a totally different guy. And this other guy had a prior rap sheet for violence at a political function back in 2017.
Mm.
And if you look at the pictures of the shot would-be assassin, and you look at his face, you can see his ear. And like people that have gauges, you know what I mean? Like your ears never grow back, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And the person from the 2017 incident had big gauges in his ears. And then you know, and like when people can get them sewed back together, and you can see like a crease in there wherever how they get stowed back together, and it's like a long crease.
Mm.
um you know, kind of, it's just, it doesn't just all go back as one and smooth like a normal brand new earlobe. So and if you look at that picture of the person, the assailant that was shot, and you look at his ear, it looks like he was previously had gauges. And so that couldn't be Crooks then, if that's the case, because Crooks never had gauges.
Interesting. I will say the other thing I didn't know about that whole thing, but one thing that I've noticed is that there's only ever been, it seems like they're only showing that picture of him as a younger kid. So like,
Yeah. And
could
now
he
they
have gotten gauges? I guess is my question.
yeah, but like if you look at all that, he didn't have them then. He didn't have them.
Fair, and it takes a while to stretch those things out. I've got friends that have gotten those.
Yeah,
Idiots,
yeah,
by the way. No offense, people, but like, what
yeah.
the
No,
hell are you doing?
I mean, there's not gauges in it. And all the photos that they're showing, I get it. They could be all older photos or whatnot. But I'm sure that something would have surfaced from like his employee file of him having them at the nursing home that he worked at or whatnot. And then
Oh, he
did you
worked at a nursing home.
yeah, and did you see that there was a whole thing where there was the little phone tracking thing, that there was someone that kept visiting him quite often and would always end up for some reason at the local FBI office.
Yeah. I saw this
So
online. I saw this on Twitter. My thing about that one, and I don't even know how to confirm this, is like, where does that information come from? You know, like I saw the map and there was like lines and it looks official, but I'm like, but how am I reading this weeks? Like, who just dropped this on the internet is my question. Or like, how did that come out? Do you know?
um, I don't know exactly, but
I don't
you know,
either. But I
I
saw what you're talking about, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
So
and so, you know, and I'm not here to say that all of these things are true. These are just things
sure.
that make me question a lot.
Yeah,
You
you want to see a crazy one I saw on the internet, which it's like lower stakes, but it's still like one of those sort of conspiracy theory type things. It's on Twitter. And actually, I'm glad I ended up preserving this tweet because this person deleted it. You know, no offense to this. And if they deleted it, maybe they realized what they said was wrong. But they just said, FYI, there are pictures of the gunman with a vape in his hand. Let's remember the minimum age to purchase legal THC or tobacco in Pennsylvania is 21, and Josh Shapiro refuses to legalize adult use. So this was likely illegal, unsafe, untested hemp. And I found
That's
that
funny.
picture because I know what he was talking about, and I recognized this device right away. So this is allegedly a picture of Thomas Crooks, and he's got a vape. It's in like a movie theater, this picture.
Yep.
And I just showed the picture of his hand. And this is clearly an Elf Bar or a Dr. Fog like nicotine vape. It's not, in my opinion, a THC vape, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think most vapes are tobacco based that you see people consuming for the most part.
Exactly, especially this like style. Like
Yeah.
I see him. It's very popular amongst people like my age and younger than 21. I just want to say, like, it's not like this is this is the vape, even though it's made for all people over 21.
Mhm.
A lot of people younger than 21 use them. So, anyways, I like this conspiracy theory because even though they like seem to have retracted it, I liked it because it's just like a desperate grab to point out that like hemp is bad. And it's like, first of all, you're like cutting off your nose to spite off your face or to
Well,
spite your face because you're like propagating reefer madness talking points. And it's like you're not helping the cause by doing that, you know?
yeah. With I wonder, showing that tweet and the fact that it's been deleted makes me also wonder if the governor's office reached out to them and asked them to delete that tweet.
Mm.
Because the governor could possibly be up for a vice presidential nomination, because the reality is, if the Democrats want her to be taken as a serious candidate, they're going to have to pick someone like a governor or a senator from a red state that has a blue seat, in essence. So like Governor Shapiro would be a perfect example, because that being Pennsylvania being a pretty purple state overall, or maybe even like a Governor Andy Beshears
Right.
out of. And so I wonder if, because it mentioned the fact of his position on cannabis, that they may have reached out to try to scrub that off the internet.
Yeah, and it is I think it's a pop, I don't know. It's just a cannabis investor. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. That's the one thing it's so I'll tell you this, Jason. I can't wait for something to happen with hemp, and I hope it's nothing bad, but for God's sake, I just want something to happen with hemp because like I'm tired of arguing with people that I know I agree with.
Mm-hmm.
Like they'll find every reason to hate on hemp. Like, oh, it's this synthetic bullshit that Mitch McConnell legalized. It's like, dude, you're reaching. It's weed. It's weed. You
Well,
know?
I feel like when they first legalized the farm bill, they missed a critical opportunity, especially under the Trump administration, with as far as make America great again. There should have been some budgetary things in there that allowed for the creation of the textile industry being reproduced within America with American grown hemp and whatnot. And I feel like that was a crucial component that was left out or overlooked, or what I mean, not thought of in the creation of the original uh farm bill. But I think, like, if you want to have that type of and it'd be great, because we could bring so many manufacturing jobs back to our country and be very, very self-dependent and self-reliant on a lot of the goods that we all import from China and whatnot in the East on a regular basis. um you know, and then so that's something that I think would be ultimately valuable for us to invest in within our infrastructure of our country.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, to your point, I never thought about it that way. It's as if like these people that are in the consumable hemp business, like there may not be as many. Like I feel like I don't know. I'm having a rough way of saying
But
this, but
Oh, no, no, go ahead, please.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, to your point, that since they didn't like capitalize these people to take really advantage of industrial hemp, like all these people are like, why are they taking advantage of this part of the farm bill? It's like, well, because they're not, to your point, like it's hard. It's very hard. They need like capital built in to like actually do something like that and to really change this country and how we use the hemp plant, you know?
Well, like let's just speak for one thing. Let's just say I wanted to make hemp-based paper towels, right? Okay, now that's going to take an extreme amount of infrastructure to build a factory to produce paper towels. Okay, hemp-based paper towels. And then once I'm producing those, where do I sell them at the same time too? And so like you need that type of government assistance to kind of uplift those types of industries, to for them to ultimately be successful and succeed and really do the good that they ultimately can.
Yeah. Yeah. Much more well said than that. You put it into words for me. I was stumbling. So
No worries, I got you, Cole.
hell yeah. So I'm curious, when did you start High at 9 News, dude? Because I feel like I've been watching for at least a year, but how long has it been going?
We are approaching our 2-year anniversary. August 22nd, 2022, we aired our first episode of High at 9 News. And we have been going every single Monday through Friday since then.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I think I remember you used to do them on Twitter Spaces. I think I joined once and
Well, what happened is some of us were doing another show during COVID that was only on Clubhouse.
oh,
Okay. And the lady that had started that, she wanted to stop it. Her father had recently passed, and she just didn't have the time or the energy to continue to do it or maintain it or anything else like that or whatnot. And so I wanted to keep on going, and so I made something different, and because that was only an audio based type of application, so we came up with the concept of doing a YouTube based, what I'm saying, live type of production, daily news show.
mhm.
And we put the pieces together and and made it happen, and it was like a really pretty seamless transition. We ended that show on a Friday, and we started the show on a Monday. So, we still made sure to bring people the information, even though they needed to figure out where we were at. And people are still trying to figure out where we're at. And here we are, High at 9 News.
At 9 News, baby. Hell yeah. No, but I remember at least that. So I've been along for the ride. I've seen the transition, and I must say that it's a great show. Like I said, a huge fan, and I just love the way that you have the rotating opinions. And I actually wanted to play one just to give people a taste if they haven't seen one. And I think it's really pertinent or relevant to what's going on here in Illinois. Let's play the clip, and then maybe you can share some of your thoughts and tell us who this is too, because I can't recall the person's name. We'll watch the clip.
Signed. Like, this isn't that fucking hard. We can't hold the city responsible, and social equity is not a guarantor of success. What social equity is, if you guys can't hear me, fucking turn your thing up, but it's the opportunity to fail like everyone else and not to be kept out of a business opportunity because of socioeconomic or criminal history, et cetera, et cetera. It's a chance to stand up and fail just like everyone else. Or they would say, hey, social equity applicant, here's your store. We've already built it. Here's the money to run it. Have a great fucking day. So I want to see Tucky win. I love you to death, Tucky. Please.
So yeah, I thought she nailed social equity. Please tell us who that is and if you have any thoughts.
So that's my friend Jenny Beth Dills.
Awesome.
And no, she was hitting the nail on the head. with all of those talking points. And so, as a little bit of follow up on that, the story that we covered was about a closure of a retail operation in Oakland that apparently had only had a 5-year lease. And upon later, after the airing of that, that operator reached out to me and said that wasn't the reason, that they had longer than a 5-year lease, but never went into what the reason was or anything else like that. So I this that article, from where we sourced it from, is still up to my understanding and whatnot. So I don't, but I did get that call afterwards. So I would like to definitely just make note of that, since we're playing that in particular clip.
Makes sense.
But no, she's Jenny's great. I've known Jenny for a while. She has a company called Kind Consulting, and really smart girl.
Yeah, well, and the reason I thank you for clarifying that, because I wasn't, I think, yeah, I heard her at the end of that clip when I was playing, saying somebody's name. So I appreciate you clearing that up. But the reason I was playing it is because what she addressed high level is, I mean, you said it earlier, you understand it. But
Yeah.
I'm just, if I could put it out clearly, that is what Illinois has defined as social equity. They guarantee your success, guarantee generational wealth. You shouldn't have to face natural market forces. God forbid you go out of business, even though some
Yeah, and
have.
I just don't understand that. I mean, LA tries to portray that too, and I feel like if they wanted that, why don't they just start cutting people that won these licenses checks, and don't even need to open up a business, just start cutting them checks every month.
Right.
Because this is definitely not happening the other way, because there's far too much government regulation that just drains all the money and then all the taxes. So a lot of these businesses, especially these social equity shops, don't really turn much, because at the same time too, a retail storefront has the least type of deductions on with a 280E structure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and, it's funny, this hemp debate in Illinois, they've made it about, the talking point they've made it is that hemp is a direct competitor to our social equity licensees. In other words, these people that are selling these products at gas stations, or you name it, online and such, they're undercutting the social equity licensees. And what's hilarious is, I've had, and I don't have the drink right now, they're in my fridge. I've had this company on my show that is a social equity licensee that also sells hemp products, just like many cannabis companies do. And it's just it's one example that I can pull. I'm sure there are more. I'm sure there are others. I'm sure they're not alone, because other people in Illinois definitely are also in the hemp space. But I'm just saying, they financed their social equity operation with their hemp money,
Wow.
because it was so hard to get up and running in the cannabis industry in Illinois.
Mhm. I believe it. I believe it.
So
Yeah, I mean, one market, it's like a mirrored world. It's like you have one side that has high taxes and overregulation, and the exact mirrored side is just this free and open market that is just booming and popping, and pretty much zero regulation for the most part.
yeah, yeah. Well, Jason, I got to split, but I hope this isn't the last time I have you on the Cole memo. And
Oh, thank you for having me today, Cole.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Again, I'd love to have you back on. And I just want to say again, folks, check out High at Nine. I have the links in the podcast description, so you can just click and go right on over, subscribe, check out their live streams, hit the chat. It's a very interactive experience, and the crowd is awesome usually. So there's always a lively chat in addition to the show. So
Yeah, we try to keep it interesting. And yes, we are on every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. That's when we stream live, or you can catch us at any time that is most convenient for you. And we're also available on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and on our very own website at www.highat9news.com.
folks, I hope you found as much value in this conversation as I did. Once again, Jason, I look forward to the next time I have a conversation with you, my friend.
Most definitely, Cole. You guys have a fantastic day, and thank you to all your audience for tuning in and checking this out.
Hell yeah. See you guys.